Welcome, my friends. It is Wednesday, August 7th. This is the Wrestling with Story podcast. My name is Joshua Hale Fialkov. I'm a writer and producer of television, animation, video games, comic books, you name it. I've done it. And I mean that. I've done it. I've done a lot of it. And I love to talk about wrestling. And tonight we're going to talk about Dynamite, AEW Dynamite. I've missed. I actually didn't do a podcast about SummerSlam. I didn't do a podcast about Raw because I have been incredibly sick, recovering from COVID. So something that isn't COVID by testing, but sure feels like COVID, from San Diego Comic-Con. So I've been really, really out of it the past week. And then on top of that, I am actually starting, you're never going to believe this, guys, a civilian job, a job that is not in the entertainment industry. Because I don't know if you've heard, but the entertainment industry is a train wreck right now. And I've got a mortgage and a daughter and got to get her through college and all that stuff. So I'm starting like a job. It's very strange. Hold on, my computer has just started playing sound. I don't know why. So I got a civilian job like a normal person. It's very, very strange. But I've been doing training for that while being incredibly sick, because that is what we do in the real world, as opposed to in the entertainment world where you're just like, I don't want to work. And then you don't. It's very strange. Because the world keeps going. So I'm not really sure how much about that stuff I'm going to share, because it's a sensitive job that I don't think you're supposed to talk about. So I probably won't be talking about it too much. But it's going to slow me down over the next week and a half or so as I'm getting used to the new hours and the new responsibilities. But hopefully it's not going to get in the way too much of getting to do more wrestling content for you guys. And in fact, it will hopefully help me to do more wrestling content because I'll have income for a change. It's been a long time. Since the strike started, I have not actually earned a paycheck. So it's been a long time without work. I've done some comic writing and I've done some jobs here and there, but virtually every single person I know, the industry has just been completely decimated since the pandemic. And I was lucky in that I worked a bunch right after the pandemic. I worked on some video games, I worked on some animation, and then I worked on the Avatar live action show. But there has been no work since the strike, and it's been really, really hard to do. It's been a hard time. And it's been like that it really is for everybody I know. So I think a lot of us have been making really hard decisions about what to do. One of those hard decisions was actually starting to do Wrestling with Story. Wrestling with Story for me has been sort of like a great comfort over the past few months because, one of the strange things that's happened in the creative community, and this is a lot of what we struck about, to be fair, but one of the things that's happened is that we stopped actually making stuff. So it's been over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, close to 6 years since I've actually been on a set. Even though I've worked on probably about a half dozen different projects, because we don't get to go to set anymore. We don't get to be, involved in things the whole way through, because what tends to happen is you work on a show and then 6 months to a year later it gets made. Or, I worked on a video game that I worked on for about 8 months, and then because of how the financing was, I had to leave to go work on a TV show because there just wasn't enough money to keep me on at the same rate that I'm used to making. So I had to leave to go, get my rate and get paid. But I worked on that video game for 8 months and it still has not come out yet. And I didn't get to see that through all the way to production. Or, I worked on cartoons as a freelancer, so you're not there through production, through the records and through the directing. And, what that amounts to is that you spend year after year after year working on stuff. But the fact is the part about writing that I like is actually the making. It's not the writing. The sitting in a room with a bunch of writers is fine. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy it enough. But the part that I actually like is being on set, and it's getting to see it through, and then going through post-production and actually getting it finished and on TV. And you don't get to do that. So part of what doing Wrestling with Story has been an opportunity to tell stories and make videos and just go from like, I have an idea, I want to make this thing, and then I sit down and I and then I pull out a camera and I hit record, and then I shoot it, and then I edit it, and then I upload it, and it's out there for people to see. Now, I would like more people to see it. That would be great. But, you know, well, some of these videos have done really well and have gotten, you know, 20, 30, 40,000 people to see them. So, like, you know, that's pretty damn cool. You know, and I've had some videos that have gone viral that I think have done better than a lot of my comic books have ever done. So, you know, like, it's pretty wild to see. But yeah, that's actually the origin of like why, that's the true story behind why I'm doing Wrestling with Story, is it was really just an opportunity because like I wanted to do something creative that I got to see through from concept to execution to distribution, because you don't get to do that anymore. It's so rare. Even working on big successful things, you don't get to do that so much, which I don't think a lot of people know. And frankly, it is actually one of the things that I find so attractive about professional wrestling is that, you know, these guys are really lucky in that they make it live. So there is very little barrier to entry, you know, like you're performing, you're sort of writing and structuring and figuring out the story, and then you're going right out there shooting it live to air. You know, there's very little interference between the writer's ideas and the performers performing it and the audience. And, you know, I come from a theater background, and that's pretty goddamn attractive to me. You know, theater's been something that, you know, I lost interest in it as a creative fairly early on because I didn't like how impermanent it was. But what I did like about it was that you could have an idea, you could put something together, and then you could be out there performing it almost right away. That was always the part that I found sort of most exotic and most enticing about doing it. But you guys are probably not here to listen to me talk about all this stuff. So why don't we get to what we're actually here to talk about, which is Dynamite for August 7th, 2024. This was I don't know how to put it. Wildly uneven? Is that how to put it? That's probably the easiest way to put it. You know, the thing about this episode that I think is so interesting for me, you know, we know going into it because Tony Khan posted that there's all kinds of travel problems, so they did not have all of their talent on hand for most of the show. So the main talent made it, which you can see because the two main sort of pillar matches of the show were intact. But I think a lot of what went on the rest of the show felt like a lot of like, just fill in cracks. Fill in as many cracks as you can. Do it now. And then on top of that, I'm guessing that there was some kind of mix-up or shorthandedness with the production staff because there were quite a few production errors as well. There was, during one of the promos, they cut to commercial in the middle of a promo and then back into the show. So, like, that was weird. At one point, the Acclaimed came out and their microphones didn't turn on. That was weird. Even just those two is kind of a lot, right? Like, that's a lot of production errors for a network TV show or for a show on basic cable to have, especially a show that's been going for 5 years. So yeah, that felt like they must be shorthanded, and combined with the inclement weather and everything, it's a lot to handle. It's a lot to deal with. So, you know, some slack given for that. But at the same time, you are putting on a giant show. You are putting on a giant show on, you know, TNT. And there's a standard of professionalism that has to be upheld. And, you know, part of, again, not to go back to what I was just talking about, but, you know, part of the thrill of making stuff is making it well, is having that ability. Like, that is part of the skill set of being a creative, is that you can't, not just that you can sit down and do it, but that you can do it well. One of the things that has been challenging, and of course, like, you know, I don't know that I always succeed, and I think if you look at some of the early videos I've made for Wrestling with Story, you will certainly see that I was definitely learning what the hell I was doing because I had no idea. But unlike Tony Khan, I am not a billionaire. I am just a dude in a garage. And it's a garage with a lot of DVDs. So maybe I don't have as much of an excuse as I would like to think I do. But All that being said, once the show got started, around the very first match we got was Kyle Fletcher versus MJF in an eliminator match for the American title. This was based off of the run-in Kyle Fletcher did to save Will Ospreay last week. And we get some shots of Will Ospreay in a room in the back watching the match through with bated breath. And this match was an absolute banger. Like, what a great match. I think Kyle Fletcher is a huge, huge talent. I think, he hasn't been used great. I think putting him into the Don Callis family might have been, like, I get the reasoning behind it. But what ended up happening is he's sort of just become a mid-card, piece of enhancement talent. So he gets beaten all the time. That's sort of what he gets used for. But the fact is like, dude was trained by Will Ospreay. Dude was in New Japan, and as a tag team guy with Aussie Open, he was one of the best tag team wrestlers in the world. I think, they had a crappy gimmick, but they were saved by the fact that they're in United Empire. So, I think that being said, he's so good in the ring, and having him go solo, like, he has the potential to go solo no problem, and has done it pretty well for the past. I mean, it's been close to at least 9 months, I think, since his partner Mark Davis got injured, and he's been on his own ever since, and I think he's done incredibly well. But he really does have the potential. I don't know that he has the potential to be Will Ospreay, but he has the potential to be up there on the card and to be doing some really special work. And I think he just hasn't been booked particularly strong. And that's even considering the fact that they gave him the television title over in Ring of Honor. Because the problem is while he had that television title, he was still being booked like enhancement talent over on AEW. Instead of being booked like a champion, he was being booked like a second stringer. And so, because so many of the people who watch AEW don't watch Ring of Honor, it doesn't really matter that he has a belt around his waist. And in fact, it actually devalued the belt more than anything. That being said, they get through the match. At the end, Don Callis runs up and hands Fletcher a screwdriver, in fact, to use. And Fletcher, of course, can't do it because he too is now becoming noble like his buddy Will Ospreay, which instead just opens up a moment for MJF to get a crotch shot. Then MJF goes and he hits a brainbuster and just lays him out. It is nasty. It feels like a little bit of overkill. Like, I think MJF probably could have gone for the nut shot and then just, pinned him like lazily and like done the like not even a challenge, which feels like might have been more in story. It might have made more sense rather than going and doing the whole thing. Then after that, MJF lays out the referee with the American title and then lays out Kyle Fletcher with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And then says, screw it, I'm going to do what Will Ospreay can't do, and I'm going to hit the Tiger Driver, at which point Ospreay has already tried to escape his room. He was locked in, it turns out, but he has managed to get himself free. He makes his way to the ring. MJF runs for it. His buddy Fletcher is all bloodied and disoriented. We have the refs come to the ring. What I found sort of interesting, and this is a byproduct, I think, of them not having a full staff, is the show was a lot slower paced than normal. So there was a little bit more room to breathe. And that means we got to stay with Kyle Fletcher. We didn't immediately cut to the next segment. We actually stayed with him and got to see sort of like the aftermath of this and like how much pain he was in and how hurt he was. And it was good. It was like a really solid, good use of TV time to help sell the injury and sell how badass MJF was. So it did a great job. It was a really solid match, solid segment overall. Really liked it. We got a backstage package, of Jeff Jarrett and Bryan Danielson setting up everything that led to them having a match, which we find out is going to be the main event of the night. And then we get Mariah May versus Viva Van. Viva Van is actually LA talent. And, we think it should be, you think it's going to be a squash match, But I like to think that Mariah May took something away from her time with Toni Storm, which is that she actually manages to put Viva Van over. And we get like a really solid match. I think Mariah May is still kind of comes off like a shit kicker because she is. But within that, we still get some real like valid defense and offense from Viva Van. And, there's a few seconds where like you actually think like maybe she's going to do it. Maybe she's going to do it. You get some actual drama in the match, and it's not just the usual feeling of like, well, she's just going to kick this no name, star's butt. This no name, no star's butt. So, and, I think Viva Van, I know we actually saw her when Dynamite taped here, and I think she's done a few other spots around the country. So I don't know if she's under contract or if she has like an appearance contract to show up, but she is extremely talented. She's got a great look. So I'm glad to see her showing up again. End of the match, Mariah May, of course, hits Storm Zero, which is Toni Storm's finishing move, pins her. And then there's somebody standing ringside with a giant oversized present for Mariah May, which Mariah May takes, and she tears it open. And it's an oversized photo of Toni Storm holding Mariah May to her bosom, which Mariah May mocks without realizing that the back of the photo has scrawled on it, "Die, Mariah, die." Then she sees it, and as she's looking at it in horror, Toni Storm appears out of nowhere and jumps her. And this is a fantastic segment. There's just a lot of like top, back and forth, and it takes all of security, and Christopher Daniels is there, and like everyone's just trying to pull them apart. My thing about what's going on with them, we've essentially been now stuck in the story. We haven't made any progress at all since maybe 2 weeks ago. Like it's escalated a little bit, but like we've been at the same fever pitch. We haven't gotten any forward momentum whatsoever. I really would like there to be another layer added onto it. I would especially like it if that layer was Mina Shirakawa. I think, they did so much work setting up the three-way relationship between them, and they did so much with that sort of like background of like how complex that relationship was leading up to Forbidden Door. I think it would do good for the story to bring Mina Shirakawa back. I doubt that's going to happen because she's obviously under contract to Stardom. But I think it would do really well for the story if they brought her back and sort of paid that stuff off a little bit more. I think that would do good things. We then go backstage. We have a film segment with Jack Perry, which gets interrupted by a Taco Bell commercial and then comes back. It's a little bit hard to follow because of the Taco Bell commercial, but essentially it's Jack Perry watching a stack of televisions that have tapes of all these different AEW stars, and he's talking about how he comes back because he has to work, and he's going to work Darby Allin, and he's going to keep his title, and nobody's going to take his title from him. And it's a little bit listless, to be honest. I think it didn't help that it was interrupted and they didn't sort of like re-thread it. They should have started it over and played the whole promo from top to bottom just to sort of help relay what the hell is going on, because it's super not clear what is actually supposed to be being said. We go off of that into commercial. We come back from commercial to find Darby Allin, who then takes what Jack Perry, I suppose, was saying, which is that Jack Perry is talking about how hard he had to work to get where he was, and then says that Darby doesn't expect him to work hard because Darby is there to work hard, and Darby only expects him to show up one day, and that day is at All In, where Darby is going to take the title from around his stupid waist. It was a good promo from Darby. Darby is just super compelling in everything he does. Then we get the Bad Apple, Brian Keith, and accompanied by the Learning Tree and the Redwood, comes to the ring for a match with Shibata. And I didn't think it was possible to make me care less about a Shibata match, but I really could care less about this match. I talked at length in the live stream, and I feel like I've talked about this before. The problem remains that we're being asked to take something seriously that doesn't have an ounce of reality to it. If Jericho came out and his angle was oh no, I know they're booing me. But they're booing me because I should have come out sooner. And I made them wait. And that's my bad. I'm sorry about that, guys. I should have come out earlier. Had I been out here earlier, had I been on commentary the whole show, they would have been so much happier. That's diluted, and that's a little bit crazy. But it's not objectively, it's not objectively insane. What he's doing is he's coming out and he's saying, "Hi guys, I know you all love me," when they're booing him. So he's asking us as an audience to pretend that he somehow doesn't hear what he's hearing. That he's so loop-de-doop that he doesn't hear it. But the thing is that his character still responds to other things in a grounded, normal way. So if his character was like Toni Storm, let's say, that cartoonish, and that over the top, as she was sort of at the height of the cartoonishness of Toni Storm, then maybe that would work. But he's sort of like not really there because it's still kind of grounded in reality, and because Jericho is Jericho, it has this like earthiness to it that makes it all kind of not function properly. And he goes into so much effort to try and convince us of what he's selling that every segment takes considerably longer than it should as well, which is extra painful. What they need to do with this entire gimmick is they need to look at it from a point of view of truth. And it doesn't have to be him being like, "Screw you guys, I'm a hero. I put in my time and you don't understand me." But all they have to do is twist what they're doing a tiny bit. And twist it to, no. They're not booing me. They're booing you for getting in my way. They're not booing me for cheating. They're booing you for making me cheat. Everything is about taking the blame of what's happening and putting it on someone else. Because that's what people do when they don't see their own faults. When someone has a fault that's being called on, that they're being called on, what they do is they blame everyone else. They blame another person. They blame somebody else who they feel is responsible because they can't take responsibility for it. And that's what needs to happen to make it feel realistic and make it feel grounded. That being said, I think I've now talked about this Jericho stuff way too much. We then get an Adam Page backstage segment where he talks about being angry and wanting to get at Swerve, but that he can't. And that everything in his life is essentially now all about getting Swerve, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get Swerve, and how much he hates Swerve. It's a little one note for me. I wish... I understand what they're doing, and I understand that like this feud with Swerve is just sort of on hold while everything else is going on, and that eventually he's going to get involved with the Danielson stuff, and he's going to likely cost Swerve the title at All In. But I wish they had something else to do with him. And every week that goes by, I think that they don't have something to do with him. I thought they were going to find a way to have him get involved with the Jarrett stuff, and then we would get Page Jarrett 2 at All In, but he did not get involved at all, so I'm assuming that's not happening because we are only 2 weeks away, so it feels pretty late to just kind of throw that match in. But it is AEW, so you never know. Then we got a Jim Ross interviewing Swerve segment that was generally pretty terrific. I will say Jim Ross looks goddamn terrible. That guy needs a rest. Like, he is just very old and very sickly. And it like hurts my soul to see how sickly he is and how much he needs a rest. But Swerve really came off like a champion. He really comes off like the guy to beat. But he comes off, in his sort of champion's arrogance. I will say this is the first time that I was like, oh, I'm 100% sure that Bryan Danielson is definitely winning the title. Because he's so cocksure and he's so playing the subtle heel now that it just seems impossible for him not to win, not to give up the title. And then I think we get a rematch at Wrestle Dream where he probably wins it back. And in winning it back, I think it actually will do a lot to sort of cement him and make him feel even more like a champion. And it'll make this second championship run feel legit and strong and good. So yeah, that would be my guess as to what's going to happen. Up next, we had a backstage segment with Orange Cassidy explaining that his entire team did not show up because of the weather, but he has some friends in mind. He then comes out and is joined by FTR dressed up like Orange Cassidy. And we get another oddball match of Orange Cassidy and FTR versus the Beast Mortos, Roosh, and Roddy Strong. The Beast, Mortos, Roosh, and Roddy Strong had a match against the conglomeration, I think, over the weekend. I think it was on Collision, if I remember correctly, or it might have been on Dynamite last week. It's hard to keep it straight. Again, been really sick, really, really sick. This is some AEW booking right here. Like, this is the booking that everybody complains about when they complain about AEW. You know, like, why would they not just fight Roddy Strong and the rest of the Undisputed Kingdom? Is the question that I'm sort of left with. Like, they're right there. I mean, you could at least have a faction altogether, but instead you use Beast Mortos and Roosh, who aren't even in the same faction with each other. It's just three random guys that they're fighting for no reason. And it was an okay match. Like, it'd be one thing if the match was like, whoa! You know, my eyes popping out of my head is what that was for those listening at home. But they weren't popping out of my head. They were just in my head. And it was long. It was 2 segments, I think, 2.5 segments long. So it was a really, really long match. And I don't know that we got much for it. Again, that's a lot more forgivable when it's like a massive banger. But this was just sort of a regular match. It felt like a placeholder match. The end of the match, Orange Cassidy and FTR get the win, I believe. I don't even know who gets the win. I mean, I'm normally really good at just like knowing I don't even write it down. Usually I just know. And I got to be honest, I don't actually remember. But at the end of it, the Acclaimed come out. And this was the second technical gaffe of the night when the microphones didn't work. And they were saved quite well by Dax, who made fun of them for not having working microphones. And then Dax essentially said, like, you know what, screw this, let's just fight. And then we had yet another run-in with all the referees and everybody from backstage trying to break them up. I got to be honest, I don't get what the hell they're doing with this. Are they trying to set up a 3-way for All In? Are they trying to swap who's fighting the Young Bucks? I don't understand what they're doing with this story between the Acclaimed and FTR. It just feels random and it doesn't feel good. Like, I don't know who I'm supposed to be rooting for. I don't like it. Feels like they're making the Acclaimed into heels, but that doesn't really make sense considering they just were in and won Blood and Guts as faces. FTR are obviously faces. Like, it just, you can't do anything to them. Like, they're just faces. They come off as faces. They are super faces. So I don't understand what the point of it is or what we're trying to accomplish. And it seems pretty dicey to try and do any sort of big moves this close to this close to a pay-per-view. Unless what you're trying to do is to make it a 3-way, which I guess I understand, but not really. I don't know. I don't exactly know what you get out of it. Then we get a promo from the back as Christian and the Patriarchy announce that there's going to be a match on Collision that is a number 1 contenders match between the Bang Bang Gang and House of Black for their trios titles, and that the winner is going to get a match at All In against the Patriarchy, and that Christian will be the father of the match by being the guest referee. So that should actually be pretty darn good. And I'm guessing that match is going to end in some kind of Michigas that will lead to that'll lead to a 3-way match at All In, because of course it will. Then we have Mercedes Moné and Kamille come out. Kamille squashes 2 pieces of local talent in a handicap match, and is just regal and magnificent. I'm a big Kamille fan. I've only seen her the few times because I don't watch NWA. I'm actually flabbergasted. I talked about this on the live stream, which if you don't follow me, please join the live streams. They're on Twitch and on YouTube, both at Wrestling with Story. I'm flabbergasted she didn't end up at WWE, because she is such like quintessential WWE material. She is gigantic. She is muscled up, but she still is just simply beautiful. Like, she is movie star gorgeous. And she is really, really good in the ring. So she already has the skills. And the thing is, the WWE needs someone like her desperately. If you could play her as a baby face or a heel, you can do kind of whatever with her. And, they need somebody, because look, they have Jade Cargill, they have Nia Jax, and they have Bianca Belair. Like, they need somebody else to go into that sort of melange, because there's nobody else who you buy as having a shot against the 3 of them. And so the 3 of them are sort of like locked in a perpetual stalemate with each other. And so just having a 4th, and Charlotte to some degree. I think Charlotte's been gone for so long, I always forget about her. I think you kind of buy Charlotte as being in the same category, certainly as Bianca Belair. But, I haven't seen Charlotte standing next to Jade Cargill yet to see how, believable she is with her. But Kamille, certainly, if you put her with the other all 4 of those women, is damn convincing. And I think she would do a great job for WWE. I'm curious how she's going to do here, because she is so much bigger and so much more put together than everybody. I mean, save maybe Willow. And Willow is such a different character. So I don't know how she's going to, I'm curious how she does with Willow. But we got, after Kamille wrecked everybody, we got Mercedes cutting a pretty flat promo against Britt Baker, and how Britt Baker is still suspended. And then Tony Schiavone announced that actually Britt Baker's suspension has been lifted, and we get Britt Baker on a screen, assuming because Britt Baker is actually still suspended, except before she was pretend suspended, and now she is actual suspended. It's very complicated. It's very confusing. But she cut a blistering, fantastic promo. The audience was 100% behind her. It's weird to not have her there. Although, again, it's either the weather or because she's actually suspended that she wasn't there. Cut a great promo, just essentially said that next week she's going to find a way to get Mercedes Moné, and I look forward to that. And then we got a package about Danielson and how him and Jarrett are having this match and why they're having this match and how Danielson has been training and, blah, 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 blah. It's a good package overall. And then we got Danielson versus Jarrett in a no disqualification Falls Count Anywhere match. And it was a banger. Jarrett got him out of nowhere. Like, he got him, hit him with the guitar first thing. So I mean, where do you go from there? I mean, that's Jarrett's biggest move, hitting somebody with the guitar. But they went all through the arena. There were trash cans galore and trash galore, and just a really stunningly great fight from both guys. Like, I think Jarrett's done a lot of these like no DQ matches for AEW over the past year or two. But this is by far the best one. And, part of that is just, it's Brian Danielson. I can't believe even I'm doing that now. Bryan Danielson just being Bryan Danielson. Just, he sells so well. He's so convincing. And the two of them together, to see sort of like an old school wrestling match, something that has that like 90s-y Monday Night Wars feel to it, was really refreshing and nice. Ultimately, of course, Danielson went over, and as he's laying there with Jeff Jarrett all wiped out, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was there as a I guess guest commentator. I thought he was gonna be like a guest referee or something, but instead he was just on commentary the whole time. He comes down to the ring to hold up everyone's hands, and they shake hands and hug, and it's a nice moment, which is interrupted by Swerve Strickland, who comes out. He calls out, he says, in what might be like one of my favorite promos he's cut, that he loves being there in North Carolina because there are 3 legends in the ring who've made North Carolina famous, and have stood on TNT television as champions. And of course, he's referring to Steamboat, Jeff Jarrett, and Swerve himself, because good old Bryan Danielson has never been a champion on TNT, and therefore he cannot be considered one of the legends. It's a really great bit. He essentially goes after Bryan. He tells him, Bryan is like, bring it now, let's do it now. He does this whole thing, even though he's clearly too screwed up to do anything. Swerve essentially says, like, if you can't face Jeff Jarrett, how the hell are you going to face me? And then Swerve says that he wants a warm-up match, and it's like, oh, who's he going to face? Is it going to be Claudio? Is it going to be who? What giant, massive, awesome fight is it going to be? And then Swerve lets out the wettest fart of the night by saying it's going to be Wheeler Yuta. So I don't know, maybe Wheeler Yuta's going to do something special. He certainly, Wheeler Yuta did a great at Death Before Dishonor. He had a great match. His pure match where he lost the title was pretty good. So, he is certainly capable of doing a great match. It just didn't live up to the same sort of hype level that they had set to sort of like, I'm going to have an epic match that will warm me up with that guy who loses every single match he's in, always, for all of eternity. Cool. And with that, we go off at the end of the night. And that is Dynamite, my friends. I would love to hear what you guys think, so go ahead and post in the comments. Tell me your thoughts. What were your favorite parts of the show? Do you think it was flat? When I go through it and I talk about it like that, it doesn't feel quite as flat as it felt while I was watching it. I think maybe I'm just feeling, only talking about the good parts. That helps. But yeah, so please let me know in the comments what you guys thought. So if you have any thoughts or ideas or things you want to ask me about, you can always email me at my email address, which is josh@wrestlingwithstory.com. That's going to flash on the screen if you're watching this. You can follow me across all sorts of social media and online by following me at Josh at Josh Fialkov on Twitter, on Instagram at Wrestling with Story, on TikTok at Josh Fialkov for some reason, because I lost Wrestling with Story. It's a whole thing. You don't want to know about it. You can follow the live streams, which I do for every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and for PLEs and pay-per-views. You can follow me there on live streams are on YouTube at Wrestling with Story, and on Twitch TV for Wrestling with Story. And, of course, if you'd like to support us, we do have cool merch, which is available. I'm going to flash some of it across the screen right now. And you can just go to thefialkov.com and go to the store and check it out. Whatever you order does help support us and encourage us to keep making more. I will put links. There'll be some affiliate links down in the description, so you can go ahead and click on that stuff. And thank you guys so much for listening. I'm gonna be back. I believe I'm gonna do SmackDown, and then I think I might end up taking next week off. Because, like I said, I'm starting this new job, and I'm not 100% sure what my schedule is going to be like. But then I will be back, because that week is the week leading up to All In, and I believe I'm going to have some special guests to join me to do live commentary, or at least do a live wrap-up show for All In. So keep your eyes open for that one, and I will let you know more details as we go. Thank you guys for all of your support. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. You can subscribe. You can subscribe to us on your favorite listening places like iTunes, on on Spotify. You can do it there as well, or anywhere that you get podcasts, or you can watch us on YouTube at Wrestling with Story. Once again, it would be fantastic if you could rate us. It would be fantastic if you could review us, and it would be even better if you could share us. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. And once again, from Wrestling with Story, I just want to say, wrestling forever.